And we are off. Good evening, everyone. Hi, welcome. Don't know why my screen's looking like this. To latest live podcast of the live episode of the All Dolphins podcast for this Sunday, July 27th, the day the Miami Dolphins took their first break from training camp before they resume action on Monday morning, bright and early. Gotta say, love those earlier starts. Not easy to get up necessarily at a time when I normally wouldn't have to get up this early, but it makes for an earlier day. No problem with that, and it's not nearly as warm. Fans will be back in attendance for those who signed up for tickets. If you're interested, it's miamidolphins.com/training camp. Tickets are free. You do have to register to get them. And we'll see what kind of crowds we get for the week. Oh, and I'm getting the voice losing again. We will, as indicated in the tease and on the title, do a little progress report of the Dolphins through the first 4 days of practice, along with discussing the latest news. And as always, do our live chat and see what is on you good folks' mind. Before I even move further along, thanks for joining me. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Smash that like button, as they say. We crossed a little number in this terms of subscribers. It's now 15.4. I'd like to get that number up. As I promised, get 20,000. It'll be Dolphin hat, Dolphin jersey. As we cross more major milestones like that, I'll keep putting on more Dolphin paraphernalia, but that's the goal for the next time. In the meantime, you're going to have to deal with this. So let's dive into it. Big news on this Sunday, of course, was the restructuring of Minkah Fitzpatrick's contract, which comes a day after reports surfaced that he had hired Drew Rosenhaus as his agent. If you're a Dolphin fan, you're very familiar with Drew Rosenhaus, not only because he's based in South Florida, but because he has represented through the years a whole bunch of Dolphin players, and this year represents Jonnu Smith, Zach Sealer, and most recently Minkah Fitzpatrick, three players who have played prominent roles in this Dolphin soap opera season show so far. With Jonnu Smith, didn't work out to Drew and Jonnu's liking, because they would have liked a new big contract with the Dolphins. That didn't happen. The Dolphins were kind of putting their foot in the ground. No indication whether the Dolphins were willing to increase his contract. One would think they would, not at the amount that Jonnu Smith clearly wanted. Eventually wound up being traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers along with Jalen Ramsey in the trade that brought Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Dolphins. Fitzpatrick came to the Dolphins with 2 years left on his contract with very good money. It's like 15.5 in 2025, 17.6 in 2026. None of it was guaranteed. So the reports indicate that the Dolphins, or I can tell you this is a fact, Dolphins converted salary into signing bonus, which in essence guarantees the money for Fitzpatrick. There's a report from Tom Pelissero of NFL Network that the Dolphins shaved $11 million off the salary cap, which was very much needed. Trying to wrap my head exactly on how that works, because unless void years were added to Minkah's contract, the math doesn't add up in being able to save $11 million off the cap. If the signing bonus is $16 million and you spread that over 2 years, that's $8 million a year, which would mean that would already be more than Fitzpatrick's new cap number, which based on the $11 million savings would have to be 4.5, because his previous cap number was 15.5. If the Dolphins shaved $11 million off of it, that means it's 4.5. That means there can't be a signing bonus spread over the next 2 seasons, because that's $8 million a year. So this is why I haven't seen any reports of the exact structure, nature of the contract. That's what's been reported. $11 million cap savings, which the Dolphins badly needed. $16 million in signing bonus converted from salary. Per Tom Pelissero, the amount of money he's going to take in 2025 went from 15 to 17 million. And Drew Rosenhaus quoted as saying they're still working on a multi-year extension, because this did not add any years to the contract, by that meaning any salaried years. because I do suspect we're talking about void years being added. Of course, now the next topic is where does that leave Zach Sealer? Zach Sealer, as I've said before, as I'm going to say again, as I'm going to keep saying, is somebody the Dolphins absolutely, positively must take care of. Team MVP in 2024. I don't need to go through his resume. Team MVP in 2024. If he's not the heart and soul of this defense, he's close to it. Got to be a mentor on the defensive line for the 3 rookie defensive tackles who were drafted: Kenneth Grant, Jordan Phillips, Zeke Biggers. This is a guy who has been exactly the kind of team player you would want. In talking to the media last week, basically suggested he wanted no part of a hold-in, didn't make any promises that wouldn't happen at some point if the Dolphins didn't take care of his contract situation. And at some point, I wouldn't blame him. Because right now he's incurring the risk of sustaining a very severe injury. He also has no guaranteed salary left. And on top of that, he's being paid some $7.2 million in salary in 2025, which is grossly underpaid for the kind of production he has given the Dolphins. Pardon me as I hydrate for a second so I don't keep losing my voice. The other bit of news on Sunday, it's not major news, but we're trying to be thorough over here. Ryan Cooper Jr., who the Dolphins waived on Saturday to make room on the roster for Jack Jones, was claimed off waiver by the New York Jets, staying in division. We mentioned it's a transaction. The Dolphins have yet to make the signing of Mike Hilton official. That's going to happen, my guess, right before practice on Monday at 9 a.m., at which time there needs to be a corresponding move. What that move winds up being, not sure. And this is, of course, where we get to what's the update on Kader Kohou. Don't know yet. There has been no word. Mike McDaniel will speak to the media before practice tomorrow morning, 8:15 a.m., at which time we'll expect him to give us an update on the status of Kader Kohou. I can tell you did not look good at the time he went down because he immediately grabbed his knee. The fact that he walked off the field, and if you've ever been to the Baptist Health training complex, he was on the field closest to the stands, walked all the way across 2 football fields to get inside the facility, and the walk actually looked better and better as he got closer to the entrance inside the facility, which certainly is encouraging. The fact that there was no development today leads me to believe, to have some optimism that it's not like season ending or anything like that, because if it was, for example, an issue like a torn ACL, chances are that would have probably been reported already by one of the national folks who are the ones who get the info leaked on those types of situations. So we're going to knock on wood. Kader has been really good so far early in camp, and we're going to knock on wood that it's nothing serious as far as injury. And I have to hydrate again. I'm going through puberty here or something. Sorry. Okay, quick progress report. So far from what we've seen in training camp. Among the things that have stood out, obviously the change in the time of the practice is one thing that stood out. There was a lot made of the Dolphin offensive lineman running after practice on Wednesday as sort of punishment or accountability for self-inflicted mistake, pre-snap penalties, the like. I haven't really noticed anybody else doing that. There was the obligatory. There's a DB who dropped an interception in practice late in the week. Can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but he dropped and did some push-ups for dropping the pass. Going back to the cornerbacks, I should mention that B.J. Adams, also there's no update with him as to what happened. If you recall, practice Saturday, went down after an incompletion in his direction, got up and was very visibly wobbly, walking off to the sideline, and then on the sideline, eventually the trainer decided, no, you're going to go inside and we're going to bring the cart to get you inside. So don't know exactly the nature of the problem. We'll get an update as well on Monday morning. If I'm looking at position by position and some quick observations so far, the one that jumps out to me is we're going to start with the quarterbacks, where the work of the backups is so much better than what we saw last year in the first few days of training camp from Skylar White and Skylar White. Well, am I thinking of a little Breaking Bad action over here? Say my name. Skylar Thompson and Mike White. Man, that was, by the way, if you've never seen Breaking Bad, watch. It's a great show. And Better Call Saul, the spin-off show, as good, maybe even better. Anyway, Skylar Thompson, Mike White, rough go at it the entire training camp last year. And we've probably already seen in the first 4 days of camps more good throws from Quinn Ewers and Zach Wilson. That's somebody asking me for a mailbag that I wasn't able to include in the written article on MiamiDolphinsOnSI.com, which I failed to promote at the top of the show. Which one of the two has looked better? They both have had their moments. I think Zach maybe has been a little bit more consistent. He's been pretty good through every 4 practices. Quinn Ewers had a couple of hellacious throws the last 2 practices, showing some great touch, throwing the ball over defenders to his receivers, and I called it to a touch type of throws. And this is a guy who I was not impressed with during the offseason program, which is why I always stressed at the time, it's really early. We should not make a premature evaluation. But again, at that time, we're going by what we see, and what we saw in the offseason program is not terribly encouraging. What we've seen through the first 4 days, 4 practices of training camp has been very encouraging for Quinn Ewers. Saw somebody out there suggest maybe the steal of the draft. I would say, whoa, simmer down. But the fact remains that he has looked good. And so has Zach Wilson, who has made a couple of really nice touch throws, along with a couple of fastballs down the middle to fit a throw through a tight window. So that's been good. And as far as Tua is concerned, Tua always looks good in practice, or almost always looks good in practice. The setup of that work, is ideal for his skill set. So he looks good. If you were to tell me he's in for a really, really big year based on what we've seen in practice, I'd say absolutely could believe that. At running back, if I'm going to be honest, the one thing that stood out to me in the first week of practice before the break is that my initial thought that Ollie Gordon, too, could give Alexander Madison a real run for that number 3 job may have been overstated, because I thought Madison looked clearly better, more explosive through the hole than Gordon is, who has struck me a little bit. And again, with everything I say here, it's 4 practices. Okay, I'm not making any final determinations yet. Everything I'm telling you is as it stands right now, based on what I've seen. That Ollie Gordon to me looks very slow, and I don't know how much of it is his head is spinning, trying to absorb everything. But right now, I think Madison clearly looks better as a number 3 running back. The top 2 look really good with Devon Achane and Jalen Wright. At wide receiver, and again, I have to hydrate again. My apologies. At wide receiver, the star so far has been Jalen Waddle. The dude's making a ton of catches, running really well in the secondary. Again, not overly surprising. Jalen Waddle is a high-end wide receiver in the NFL. Among the best number 2s in the league, but probably easily top 5 among wide receiver 2s. You can make an argument top 3. If you were to suggest he's the best second wide receiver in the NFL, it's not absurd. I think T. Higgins might be a bit better than him, but it's not far-fetched to suggest. I mean, Jalen Waddle's a very good wide receiver. And he's outshined Tyreek Hill so far. Again, it's early. Tyreek Hill had the long touchdown reception from Tua at the end of practice on Saturday. I don't think there's any worry about that 1 and 2 combo the Dolphins have right there. Among the other ones, the one that stood out to me so far is D. Eskridge, who I think would have a major leg up for that 5th spot behind Hill, Waddle, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and Malik Washington. Among the rookie free agents, Dolphins have 4 of those at wide receiver in Andrew Armstrong, Theo Weiss Jr., Monterey Baldwin, A.J. Henning. I think right now the one who would stand out, the one who caught my eye the most in the offseason program was Weiss. So far in training camp, Armstrong's the one who to me has shown the most And if there's a roster spot to be had by one of those guys right now, I would say probably be Armstrong. But I don't know if that's still going to happen. At tight end, can't really tell you that anybody's stood out for me. Jalen Colliers, by the way, I think we failed to mention that on the last episode of the All Dolphins podcast Saturday when Perk was joining me. Was not at practice on Saturday. Not sure exactly what's going on with him. And I'm trying to think, it may have been Friday as well. Maybe the last 2 days he's been out. Don't know exactly what's going on with him. But again, none of the other guys have really stood out. Hayden Rucci has had a catch. Julian Hill, don't think he's caught a pass yet. Has some decent block. Has had a false start. Darren Waller, of course, is on PUP, so hasn't worked out yet. He's been spotted on the field watching practice the last couple of days. And then who am I missing? Pharaoh Brown. Pharaoh Brown actually had a very good practice on Saturday. Before that, not very noticeable. On the offensive line, what stands out is Aaron Brewer hasn't practiced yet. Of course, even though he's not on PUP, it's a lower extremity injury. Mike McDaniel said he would be back sooner rather than later, but he hasn't been there yet. James McDaniel's reps at right guard have been limited. There are certain days where he'll take some reps in 11-on-11s, and then that'll be done for the day. He did more the last practice. In terms of the rookies, again, here's what I'm going to say about offensive line evaluation when you're looking at a training camp practice. Number one is we're not behind the action. We are to the side. Therefore, our view basically from where we sit, if the offense is going left to right, I'm basically got the right tackle blocking everybody else on the line. If they're going right to left, I got the left tackle, Patrick Paul, who's blocking my view of everybody else on the line. Patrick Paul is a big man, in case you didn't know. And then there's no replay, and there's no all 22 for me to go back on. And not only that, but as for the ball is snapped, I'm looking, kind of trying to see everything as much as possible. So it's very difficult to fully evaluate the offensive line in a practice setting unless something happens real quickly, or you can see two players isolated one-on-one, an offensive lineman against a pass rusher, and you can see how that develops. Having said all that, I don't know that anything has jumped out at me positively or negatively in terms of the offensive line. I think it'll be easier maybe to evaluate when there's a preseason game. Then we have the benefit of being able to watch the game, on replay with the all 22, where then you can go back and forth and watch them play more than once. And you can focus on certain guys. So I wish I could make a very for more intelligent and actually worthwhile statement about the offensive line, but I'd be lying. Based on what I've seen, there's some days when there's more pressure on the quarterback, which overall would indicate obviously an offensive line issue. There are certain plays where there's been some nice runs. I saw plays like Ryan Hayes had a really nice seal block. I think it may have been against Chop Robinson. No, that was Pharaoh Brown. Ryan Hayes had a very nice seal block against an edge defender at practice on Saturday. But outside of that, again, there's not a ton I can say. In terms of the interior defensive linemen, kind of the same thing is the same issue where you're dealing with. They're not in space. It's difficult when you're trying to watch everything at the same time. Can't say that any of them. I think I've seen Zach Sealer get into the backfield more than I would say Kenneth Grant, although Kenneth Grant had a pressure that may have been a sack in the last practice. I haven't noticed Zeke Biggers very much. Jordan Phillips, certainly I've noticed his enthusiasm when he makes a play. At a couple of plays where he stuffed the running backs close to the line of scrimmage or right after the line of scrimmage, and he gets pumped up, fired up after the play. Among the edge defenders, they are all looking good. They're all moving good, and you see plays where Jalen Phillips will get in the backfield, Chop Robinson will get in the backfield, Bradley Chubb will get in the backfield. Haven't noticed much from the other guys. Mohamed Kamara had a very, very nice practice the other day, including one play where he really set the edge. Grayson Murphy's been quiet. He's one of the guys who I was going to have my eye on. Haven't really noticed him very much. Same with Cameron Goodare. McClendon, who was the UDFA last year, had a really strong practice think it might have been Friday. Outside of that, nothing really stands out among the linebackers. The inside the off the ball linebackers, so to speak. For the most part, Willie Gay's been tremendous. He makes plays every practice. Jordan Brooks is flying all over the place. Use him in the offensive backfield on running plays on a regular basis. KJ Britt, not a ton, but I think he's somebody who's probably going to shine more when the pads come on. And then Tyrell Dotson Jr. hasn't been as noticeable as the other two guys, but has made a couple of plays as well. Now, of course, we get to the secondary and the cornerback position. And this is where I tell you that Dolphins did add not only Jack Jones, but Mike Hilton on Saturday to go along with Cornell Armstrong, who was added on Thursday. But it wasn't, to me, like the cornerback play was a catastrophe. I think the Dolphins absolutely did very well to bolster the group with some established players. But I can't sit here and say that, again, the cornerbacks were awful before that happened, and the Dolphins, absolutely needed to push the panic button. That wouldn't be accurate. I think Storm Duck actually looked pretty good. Cater, as I mentioned, was very, very good before he was injured, which happened, unfortunately, in a one-on-one drill. He was trying to cover Tyreek Hill. Tyreek made an outcut. Kohu, I guess, his foot jammed somewhere, and then his body turned towards the end zone, and he kind of stumbled to the ground before grabbing his right knee. Kendall Sheffield has had some decent plays. He's a guy who figures in the mix, and which brings us to Cam Smith. And unfortunately, wish I have something very positive to say, but it's not been great. And he was beaten on a double move by rookie wide receiver Monterey Baldwin for a long touchdown on a pass from Quinn Ewers in the last practice. At safety, Ifeanyi Melifonwu remains on the non-football injury list. That's a little disappointing. Minka Fitzpatrick has been very, very good. Not a shocker. Outside of him, Elijah Campbell has made a couple of plays. Ashton Davis was in the unfortunate position of being next to Tyreek on that long touchdown pass at the end of practice on Saturday. And Jason Sanders, according to my buddy Perk, was 6 for 6 on his field goal attempts on Saturday, though there was not a long range one. And the punters, I saw Jake Bailey handling all the punting the other day. The one time they did do punting, it was Jake Bailey who handled it. And we have that competition going, of course, with him and Ryan Stonehouse. This is a competition where it's going to come down to what the Dolphins are prioritizing, because clearly Stonehouse has the bigger leg. And if you don't believe it, is that set an NFL record for punting average in a season, and then came up with this or tied it the following year. But then you have directional punting where Jake Bailey's better. And you also have holding that comes into play. And Jason Sanders had a great year last year with Jake Bailey as his holder. Could that become the determining factor? Yeah, absolutely it could. So I think that's kind of in a nutshell what we got going on in terms of the overall outlook of the roster and how things have progressed so far in the training camp. If I think of other things that they need to discuss as far as the Dolphins are, again, they'll be back at practice on Mondays. But for now, let's switch over to the comment, and my favorite part of the live podcast is our back and forth and our discussion here from the chat board. So here we go. Stefan Birkenfrau, thank you very much for the contribution, Stefan, much appreciated. Relationship with Drew, pro or con for Finns? I think it's a pro. I mean, here's the thing. Drew is going to do what's best for his clients. I mean, it's not like he's going to give the Dolphins a break on one player, because he's got so many clients on the team. Drew gets it done for his players. Him and David Mulugeta kind of stand out right now as guys who will get it done for their clients. I don't know that there's a major issue either way. it's something to be monitored though, but I don't see a major problem, to be honest. So, okay, let me go to the top of these comments as we catch up here. Whoa, come on. Here we go. No. Here we go. Okay. Okay, Noel, I have to acknowledge you because I like you, Noel. No, you're a good dude and you're a funny man. Good evening, brother. Absolutely. Good evening. So we got here some comments here. We got Minka sign. Yes. Oh, birthday shout out. Balakai. Okay. It's your birthday. Let me see if I remember how to do this. Is this going to do it? Oh, let me take this off. Is this going to do it? No. Sorry, I was trying to get you the old. Nope. Sorry, I was trying to get you the fireworks and the balloons, but didn't work. But happy birthday. What do we got here? Let's hear it. Give me some good coverage. Here you go. Hopefully I've given you some stuff already. By the way, it's Poup. First four letters of my last name. Harlando, I missed you, Poupart. Good to see you. I feel like you're a Dolphin junkie and you're my supplier. I'm not crazy about those terms, but sure. Rafael, any info on Cater injury? No, as I said, there was somebody who tweeted at me saying that he thought it was ominous that there hadn't been any kind of update today. And then I kind of think it's the other way around because the way these things work, if it was a serious injury, I think the info would already be out there, again, leaked through to a national reporter. So we shall see. Michael, how are you, Michael? Cliff D, Fins are trash and Ross took over. Cliff, did the Dolphins do a whole lot better before in the 7 years since? Come on. Jeff, how are you, Jeff? Can we please somewhat politely discuss the issue of Rosenhaus? This guy causes so many headaches for me as a fan of this team, and he has an office in the building. He doesn't have an office in the building, but yes, he does have a lot of clients. Does he cause issues? You think if it was any other agent that Jonnu Smith wouldn't have been asking for a new contract? Sorry. No, it's Drew's the conduit through the players, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Again, the second the Dolphins made the trade, you look at Minkah's contract. He's got 2 years left with big money, but zero guaranteed salary. You don't think for a second that dude's going to be knocking on the door to get his contract redone, to get some guarantees? Wouldn't have mattered which agent it was. And maybe this is where Drew's a better agent than a lot of other agents because he's going to get it done, which is why Minkah switched to him. So Drew Rosenhaus is like the godfather at this point. He's up there. Like I said, David Mulugeta, who was Christian Wilkins' agent, who was Javon Holland's agent, is another one who gets money for his guys. And he just got, I believe, he was the agent for Rashawn Slater as well, who became the highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL on Sunday. Jeff, do you think Miami made a mistake by signing Waller so quick instead of waiting for someone like Noah Fant? No. If Waller is close to being peak Darren Waller, he's much more of an impact player than Noah Fant. The Dolphins have their blocking tight ends with Julian Hill and Pharaoh Brown. They're looking to replace somewhat what Jonnu Smith gave them last year, and Darren Waller, again, when he was right in 2020 and 2021 with the Raiders, that dude, Waller's a baller. So no, and again, I don't think no offense, it's a solid tight end, but I don't think he's got necessarily the ability to be a difference maker. Darren Waller absolutely does. Belakai, Drew doing his thing. Hopefully he can get Sealer sealed up. Now maybe we'll hear something from Minkah. Yeah, I made the prediction to our Dolphins colleague. Sign Captain Obvious. Now we'll get Minkah on Monday. Could be wrong, but I would expect it. And yeah, I'd be shocked if the Zach Sealer extension wasn't done pretty quickly. Do you believe they still get an extension done for Minkah? Don't know. I think there's no urgency to get it done, and it certainly now goes behind Zach Sealer in the priority list. It might even go behind Jordan Brooks in terms of priorities. think the Dolphins have been a little bit reluctant to tie themselves to big money contracts this year, starting this year. And perhaps they're going to want to see, maybe wait a little bit to see how things are working out. Could it happen? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's a slam dunk, though. Will he be here next year is my question with the new contract. Again, I haven't seen the structure of it exactly yet in terms of how much guaranteed money is going to be this year, how much guaranteed money is going to be next year. That could dictate here. Rose said nuts, but where's Mohamed Kamara? Has been awfully quiet. He's generally been very, very quiet. He had a good practice. I'm trying to say if it was Friday or Saturday, but that was a good practice that I noticed him for the first time. Otherwise, yes, he's been very, very quiet. What? Hopefully Chiefs win next year. Why? Look. Jeff, I am so ridiculously annoyed the Dolphins can't work with anyone else. I do not understand what that means. JJ's, I call the Jack Jones pickup. It's been out there for a while. I mean, they could have had him. And again, low risk, high reward. If he pans out, he had a really, really good practice on Saturday. His first practice with the team was very, very, very impressive. Jermaine, so it's only a 1-year deal. I don't know. I don't know the structure of the contract at all. All they did not add any years. He's got 2 years left on his contract. What they did is they gave him guaranteed money through the signing bonus. Cap for life, interesting only this year from what you're explaining. Again, I haven't seen. And I hope you guys are not bothered by all the loud whispering that's going on in the background. And I'm hoping it's going to stop pretty quickly. So let's get back to the chat. Craig, with the Dolphins adding $11 million of cap space, what, if anything, do you see them doing with that? Perhaps look at a guy like Fant. I'd be very, very, very surprised if they made a move towards Noah Fant. I think the Dolphins are set at tight end unless something happens very quickly with Darren Waller in a negative fashion, and that would be disappointing, and I have no reason to think that it would happen. No, thank you so much. Has Jordan Phillips been doing anything? Don't think I've heard his name at all. I've noticed him a couple of times on running plays. Jordan Phillips is not a guy, again, for offensive and defensive linemen, it's when the pads come on that you can really start noticing him a lot more. And especially for a nose tackle, so that we haven't heard much from Jordan Phillips in the first few days of camp is not any sort of indicator that there should be any concern whatsoever at this point. Pardon me. Okay, let's go back here. Nick, Noah Fant, Waller is the clear number one. Fant can only hold that guy's jockstrap. I don't disagree with the sentiment. I don't know if I put it in those terms, and here's the thing too. They'll go with tight ends and with different packages. Darren Waller may or may not wind up with the most snaps. If the Dolphins want more blocking from their tight ends, it's not going to be Darren Waller who's going to give it to him. It's going to be Pharaoh Brown and Julian Hill. So, okay, I have to go back up here. Okay. Okay, Jeff, legitimately, the Dolphins are never going to succeed until they get rid of that guy in-house and take a long and hard look at how they deal with the roster contracts, specifically agents, and being better. Okay. Cap for life. So they paid a guy who just got here, gave him a pay increase while Zach is still waiting. Yep, sounds about right. Yeah, but it's not an apples to apples comparison. I think what they did with Minka was a lot more simple than what they're going to do with Zach Steeler. And I still think it's going to happen with Zach Steeler, and it'll be more significant than the restructuring of the contract for Minka. Let's go here. What do we got? Chris, thank you very much for the contribution. Chris, much appreciated. What's your opinion over under 9 wins this year? Mainstream media thinks we're going to suck. Yeah, that is the mainstream media. Here's what I would tell you. I would tell you this is a team that's got an awful lot of ifs with question marks. I think there's an awful lot of potential if there's more positive answers to those ifs and negatives. And that includes, let's say, the health of the edge defenders coming back from injury, the offensive line, whether it's James Daniels' ability to bounce back from the Achilles injury, whether Patrick Paul and or Jonas Avainaya can deliver in their really first year as full-time starters. Tua can stay healthy. I don't like making predictions, but I think the possibilities are intriguing for the Dolphins if a lot of things work out right. And I don't think it's a slam dunk that they're going to go under 9 wins. I really don't. What do we got here? This team has more holes than Swiss cheese. A very cute comment. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, especially after the moves off the offseason. Mike Hilton's a high-end nickel corner, even though he didn't have a great year in coverage last year. He's a great blitzer. He's a very good tackler, particularly for somebody who's 5'9", has been very good in coverage in years past. That's a good pickup. Jack Jones is highly talented, has done some really, really good work in the NFL, particularly with New England. Didn't have a great year last year with Vegas, but there's a lot of talent there, and this was a very low-risk, high-reward signing for the Dolphins. No, hitting puberty in your 60s, better late than never. How dare you say I'm in my 60s? How dare you? Okay, fine, I'm in my 60s. Okay. Finn Fabric, my coaching ain't going anywhere. Dolphins going to have a good year. Absolutely could happen. And I think it would have to go sideways still for Mike McDaniel to go anywhere, would be my thought. Chucky should be our first choice if there's a rebuild. I know a lot of fans are really high on John Gruden as a potential new Dolphin head coach if there's a change. I'd have to see who else would be available. Kenshawn, is Flores' structure being implemented again today? The accountability for mistakes is what led us to being the least penalized team. You would think, right? Not to that degree. I mean, Brian Flores was famous or infamous, depending on how you want to look at it, for his TNT wall, which stood for takes no talent, which is basically what the Dolphins would do, would run across the field to go touch the wall where the sign was if they did one of those self-inflicted mistakes, such as a false start or the like. I think the Dolphins are looking to, create more accountability than they've had in the past. They're not going to the extreme of Brian Flores. I don't believe. That's a spirit. Clyde, this is the best. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that comment. Appreciate it, Clyde. Jonathan, I prefer BCS over BB. Okay. Dwayne Mingo questioned which had more impact last year, Tyreek's antics off the field or Tua's actions on the field. Wow. Tua's actions on the field were fine when they were not playing high-end teams, when he wasn't the only one who wasn't performing, which is part of my belief that I've said about Tua, that he's somebody who will absolutely deliver if the team is working in most areas. He absolutely will do his part. If it doesn't work, he's not somebody who I believe will be able to elevate those around him like a Josh Allen, like a Lamar Jackson, and yes, like a Joe Burrow. But he wasn't the issue last year, and I don't know how anybody would say that. But for those, I'm not sure how crazy I am about the narrative of Tua miss 6.5 games. If he doesn't miss those 6.5 games, Dolphins are in the playoffs, because the fact is the Dolphins were 6-5 in the 11 games that Tua started, which is not a great record. So, but no, I'm not here to take shots at Tua, and The biggest issue with Tyreek last year is he was playing through some stuff pretty much the whole season. Dougie Fresh, welcome back. I lived in Japan for 7 years. Absolutely love the people, food, and the craziest TV shows anywhere. What is one thing you experienced you wish was done in North America? 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven. How's that for an answer? Blown away. Actually, my wife has a coworker who lived in Japan for 4 years and had told us about it. I told her about it. And I was kind of skeptical. And then I went in there and it was like, my word. I mean, anything you eat in there is absolutely fabulous. I mean, restaurant quality here. That's one thing I wish. You wouldn't catch me dead eating a meal from 7-Eleven here. Nick, mark my words, Nabokov fan. 2-1 McDaniel will make this dude shine. If you have doubts, then you haven't seen this dude ball. He has 30, plenty of years left in the tank. Who wouldn't quit on the Giants team? The issue with Darren Waller is, again, he's had durability issues. So is there going to be a problem? That's the only thing. But if he, again, yes, he's 30 or 31, whatever. He doesn't have a ton of mileage on him for compared to normal players at his age and at his peak. The dude can play. Give me Zach Wilson over Skyler all day, every day, and twice on Sunday mornings. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Clyde, do you have a chat where you can get dollars? You deserve it. Oh, dude, much appreciated. Love that. Thank you. Much appreciated. Yeah, there should be a donate button somewhere on there on the page as you're watching. I'll do the research on that and give you an answer the next time. I really should know this. But very, very much appreciated. Finn Fabric, they weren't far off last year with Tua missing 6 games. People act like Dolphins were trash. Again, Dolphins were 6-5 with Tua starting. So chances are they would have made the playoffs had Tua not been injured. How far would they have gotten in the playoffs? But Ken Sean, only Flores did the drop and give me 50 for missed INTs or false starts. We're running to the wall. That damn wall let us in the NFL. Let us lead in the NFL with little to no mistakes. Yeah. Yep. That guy's very polarizing, by the way. Brian Flores, is a lot of fans who do not like him at all, who get pissed off every time I throw flowers his way. But in terms of X's and O's, that dude could coach. The player relations or people skills, not great. If he gets another chance to be a head coach, hopefully he will have learned, and I think he could become a good head coach in a second stint. Cliff D, what great owner hasn't won a playoff game in 20 years? I don't know that I ever called him. If you're referring that to me, I don't know if I called him a great owner. I don't want to put everything at his feet though. Because he's somebody who basically generally has stayed out of the way and has never, ever been shy to spend whenever he's been asked to spend. So Quinn Ewers was encouraged by Coach Jordan. Whatever has happened, again, he's looked good. Dylan Medina. Dylan, are you concerned about Ollie Gordon? I noticed every time Tyndall is mentioned, it's against Gordon. I forgot to mention him. He's actually looked good. Better than I've seen. I've noticed him more than I noticed him in any previous training camp so far. Am I concerned about Ollie Gordon? Still very, very, very early, but I haven't seen anything so far to tell me, whoa, check out this guy. And I know he led the NCAA in rushing yards in 2023, but I haven't seen anything that blows me away so far. Dylan, tight end group, will there be any surprises there? in terms of roster spot, I don't know. I think it's going to be Julian Hill, Farrell Brown, Darren Waller, and then you got 3 youngsters on the roster: Tanner Connor, Hayden Rucci, or Jalen Conyers. Maybe they keep a 4th. In that case, probably Tanner Connor, but certainly possible they would keep only 3. Remember, Alec Ingold is a fullback also. A lot of teams don't keep a fullback, and they generally then they'll keep an extra tight end. There'll be 3 or 4, and I don't know. I don't expect major surprises there. Okay, what do we got? Brett McIntyre. Brett, how are you, sir? Thank you very much for the contribution. When you look back at this thread, check out my above link. Not appropriate for your live content, but pretty funny. Love your work. Thank you. I will absolutely check it out. Kickback, thank you very much for the contributions. What do you think of the moves our assistant GM, Drew Rosenhaus, made this offseason? Will it pay off for us this year? That's funny. I like that. Very clever there. Well, Drew didn't represent Jalen Ramsey, so the moves, who's he got? He got Jonnu Smith. He's got Minka Fitzpatrick. He has Zach Sealer. If they extend Zach Sealer, that's a good move. I'm trying to think, who else does he have? Yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr., who's still looking for a team. I forget. I'm liking the Dolphin offseason a lot more now than I did before, or now no longer in the offseason, but the pre-regular season moves. I like what they've done last, I'd say, week and a half or so with the additions of Brunskill, Jack Jones, Mike Hilton. It's good work there. Stefan, does training feel more intense than previous years? Again, thank you again for another contribution. Not really. The one thing I will tell you about training camp is they move quickly. They don't waste a lot of time between plays. There are a couple of practices that have been like fairly short in terms of length, but you look and they get an awful lot of 11 on 11 reps. There's not a whole lot of lollygagging around there. But as far as more intense, yeah, I'd be lying if I said I've noticed any kind of difference. Cliff, that is completely inaccurate. Plus Ross medals. No, Ross does not medal, actually. Sorry. Dylan, second off-season Brewer is hurt. I don't know how I feel about extending him at this point. That's fair. Well, the argument could be made that last year was kind of a fluky thing where he had a thumb injury. This year, it's lower extremity. I don't know the exact nature of it, but yeah, that's what you say is a fair point. Guys, I really hate the back and forth and you start arguing with each other in a live chat. Not that, and I'm not gonna bring it up, but whatever. If you guys feel like doing that. Oops, sorry, no. What we got here? Marcus, thank you very much for the contribution, Marcus. Much appreciated. Based on the contracts that Miami has been signing with Minka and others, they've bought themselves the flexibility to see if they need to push the reset button without major cap issues. Correct. And they have some guys who can move on, big cap number guys. They can move on from after this season. Obviously, Tyreek Hill's one of them. Bradley Chubb's another one. Jalen Phillips, Dolphins are going to have to make a move on him at some point, make a decision either whether to extend him or, have him finish out the season on his 5th-year option at $13.3 million. That's an easy way the Dolphins could create cap space there as well. But you're absolutely right. And if you notice, the Dolphins did not give out any major contracts, big money, long-term contracts this year. In fact, the biggest free agent they signed was James Daniels, and it's 3 for $24. So, and even with his contract, they can get out of it after 1 year if for some reason things go south. So they have put themselves in a position where they're not handcuffing themselves to a lot of big money down the road, which is kind of what they did to this point and next year as well. Alan, where will the new cap money be spent? think they at some point they might be in the market for backup offensive tackle at some point. I know they signed Larry Borum to fill that role. Larry Borum might be a better guard than he is a tackle. And it's not necessary that they're going to spend it. I mean, they need they want to have some operating money, cap space once the season starts in case injuries come up. What's up with Cam Smith? Just not getting it done. Gary's asking, pardon me, Ewers looked like a starting caliber QB. Too early to tell. I mean, some of the throws he made in practice last 2 days, you would say, yeah, absolutely, but still too early. And again, I would be a lot more inclined to say yes than I was in the offseason. Billy, week 2 of last season, did away with positivity this season as an extend of last year, and they'll have the exact same opportunity this year they had last year, which is an early season game against the Buffalo Bills, which provides a measuring stick. And if you look at their game at Buffalo last year, they had a chance to win. If they can go ahead and steal that game in week 3 at Buffalo, the Thursday night game, you want to talk about a springboard to bigger things in 2025, even if they make it a competitive game like they did last year, would give you some encouragement. But they can't have, and last year, you're absolutely right. Last year, that week 2 game set a bad tone for the entire season because not only did they lose, they got spanked. And they were getting spanked before Tua sustained the concussion that would knock him out for the next 4 games. So they can't have that again. Brett, again, thank you very much, Brett. The makeup and focus of this team reminds me so much of the 1990 team. I just watched a bunch of the old games. It's a really interesting comparison. If you recall, that 1990 season was a season for Dolphin fans not familiar. They went after in 1989. They were in a stretch of 4 years without making the playoffs. And in 1989, they finished 8-8, and in 1990, something just clicked with the defense, and it got really good, really fast. Kind of was a driving force behind that 12-4 record. Unfortunately, they got into the playoffs against the Buffalo Bills on the road, and the defense could not stop the Bills. Wound up losing 44-34. I'm sorry, I should say that was after the Dolphins won a wild card game against the Kansas City Chiefs, 17-16, coming back from a 16-3 deficit in the fourth quarter. Then they went to Buffalo, and the defense had no answers for the Bills against what was the best of the 4 Bills Super Bowl teams, which was completely the best team in the NFL that year, even though I know they lost the Super Bowl. But they lost Super Bowl in a situation where they play the Giants 10 times. They win 8 or 9 times. It just so happened there's a perfect storm that one day in Tampa, capped by Scott Norwood missing the field goal at the end. But and certainly there were no expectations of the 1990 Dolphins heading into the season, as I recall, because, again, they had missed the playoffs the last 4 years. Maybe this is the same situation with the Dolphins where the expectations are low and they, shock everybody with a big season. Again, if the question marks produce a lot of positive answers, this Dolphin team could go places because there is some high-end talent on this roster. Stefan, does McDaniel feel more intense, more involved? Sorry, Stefan. And again, I appreciate the contribution. I don't notice it. His press conferences are the same. He's still, I look at him on the field. I don't notice any difference. Behind the scenes, maybe he is. I don't know. But I think, in fact, one of the players was asked that very question. May have been in the offseason program, late in the offseason program or early in training camp, and he was like, not really, same dude. So, and again, that's who he is. And you can't ask somebody to be something he's not. You just hope that, you tweak some things here and there and some strategies and all that stuff, and hopefully the results will be better. Finn Fabric, Marshall makes it. Yeah, they're going to have decisions to make. It very well might. Because if you're counting Mike Hilton's a nickel corner, but technically he's more cornerback than safety. If you want to count him there, so you'd have Jack Jones, Mike Hilton, Cater, unless his injury is severe. Storm Duck's going to make the team. That's 4. I have a hard time seeing the Dolphins getting rid of Cabs Smith before his 3rd year as a second-round pick. That's 5. Jason Marshall Jr. would be 6. And probably that's it in terms of cornerbacks. Merman, did you enjoy Japan? Have you ever visited Australia? I absolutely adore Japan. I have never visited Australia. It's on my bucket list. My only reservation about Australia is the flight, and it didn't help that the flight back from Japan to Miami was an absolute bear, and the entire travel day was 27 hours because we had to do Osaka to Tokyo, Tokyo to New York, New York to Miami, and the Tokyo to New York leg was 13 hours, and that was brutal. And my understanding is Australia is a lot longer flight than that. So that's very daunting to me, but yes, I would like to see it. Mac Minka deal frees up 11 million. Does that mean Sealer deal this week? Well, not necessarily, because the Sealer deal more than likely is going to lower his cap space. So it's not lack of cap space has been the issue, because Sealer's cap space, even though he's scheduled to make 7.2 million in 2025, his cap number is over 11 million, and more than likely this cap number is going to go down once he gets an extension. So it's not cap space that's been holding things up, but I still think Sealer extension happens sooner rather than later. Gary, we can't forget about the backup QBs because they're probably going to play. Correct. Craig Miller, do you think cornerback Armstrong makes the team? Think he has the inside track for a spot because of his special teams play. He's a long shot, dude. Let's be honest. I mean, he hasn't played a regular season game since 2022. He is a good special teams player, but I already gave you 6 cornerbacks who I think are very strong candidates to be on the 53. And I didn't even mention Isaiah Johnson, who's a good-looking young guy. B.J. Adams, who's a promising rookie free agent, and then Ethan Bonner. I would say, like I said, Cornell Armstrong's a long shot. Cliff, you're way too. I'm the one who's supposed to be negative, but Cliff, man, dude, seriously. I think I'm going to stop highlighting your comments because it seems to be reveling in negativity, and while you're entitled to your opinions, I don't think there's a need to necessarily spotlight them. Max Smith, would Sealer hold out with no deal? It would go against every single solitary word he said during his media session on, when was it, Wednesday, where he basically saying, that's not who I am. He got here by working. At some point, though, I would expect him, almost encourage him to hold in if the Dolphins are not moving on an extension. And again, it can't be a case where the demands are ridiculous coming from his end, but the Dolphins still need to make something happen here. John, everyone always talks about breakout players, but who do you see not having a big year or meeting expectations? Oh, Jesus. No, I don't think I want to go there. It's too early to tell. And there's really no need, to be honest with you. Balakai, thank you. I appreciate you, Poop. Awesome shout out. You do. You're the man. No worries. Again, happy birthday. Any more cornerback signings? They got Jones and Hilton. not unless injuries become an issue. Mac, what percentage chance Cater starts outside? I don't think it's necessarily great because I think Jack Jones solves a big issue here. But they do have options in the slot if they want to do that with not only Cater, but if Melifonwu also can play in the slot. So be interesting. Yeah, I still think right now I'd almost be inclined to think it would be Jack Jones and Storm Duck outside with Cater Kohu in the slot, Minka and Melifonwu at safety. Mike Hilton's your backup nickel. Ashton Davis is your backup safety. That'd be my guess. Henry, if we're able to establish the run after too high, you don't think we'll be able to get back to 2022 offensive form? To me, this is the single most important part of the season outside of Tua health. Trying to remember how good the running game was in 2022 compared to 2024, and I don't know that there was a major difference, and they went over the top quite a bit in 2022, even though they were seeing a lot of too high safety looks. So I think there's something to it. It's not the end all be all. But obviously, clearly, the more damage they can do with the running game, the better it is for the ability to go over the top and also drawing defenses forward. Yes, the Dolphins were much better before Ross, perennial playoff team. Dude, Ross took over in 2008. That's the last time they made the playoff. Before that, they made the playoffs in 2001. So they didn't make the playoffs in 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 6 straight years. So, no. Sorry, not buying it. Max Smith, why was Jack Jones still available if he's young and starting caliber? Because here's the thing, not a scheme fit in Las Vegas would be the main issue, and there are, like it or not, some character concerns based on past incidents, which is why he was out there for quite a while. Finn Fabric, do you think Waddle overtake Tyreek as the number one this year? Not a chance. Right now in camp, Waddle's the one getting the most catches. Once the regular season starts, Tyreek's a clear number one, and was the number one player in the NFL per the NFL Network Top 100. There's a reason for that. Okay, we're gone past the hour mark. We're going to start wrapping it up. Let me just go quickly. Like a rapid fire type of thing. I'm going to have way too many of these. Too many of these. Yeah, I'm going to be able to get to all of these. My voice is going. That's my excuse for bailing out on you guys. You know what? I'm going to wrap it up. Give my singing voice a rest. I have a concert tomorrow. I kid. What I have tomorrow is practice in the morning. We're going to have another Dolphin podcast practice recap with Chris Perkins again in the afternoon. Dolphins Collective with Doug Lee Durong, TD Finstock, Omar Kelly, myself tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. live on YouTube. We're switching to Mondays and Thursdays. Please check out the written content at Miami Dolphins on SI.com. All free, a lot of it. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends who are not subscribing to subscribe. And I much appreciate everyone for joining me this evening. Big heart. And we'll be back at it tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.